Alright, so we're going to go into some amount of... let's just use the background music for the... this here is going to be lovely. And where's the screen? The screen is here. Let's see. Full notes are here. Okay, we're set it up. Could go with this. If that makes sense. Not really, right? Something like that. Alright, so we were working on MC last stream. We kind of tried the reviews, but we've still got a ton of cards to review. Like, I don't know how many review cards do we have at this point, but it feels like we should be close to half the set. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6, 27, 28, 29, 20, 30, 30, wow, 31, 32, so 32 times 3 cards equal 96, 7, 8, 9, 100, 102, 103, 105. We've got 105 cards spoiled so far. This is a third or close to half of the set already, so we have to be very close to the release date. Hey S04E, how are you going? Good morning. So CCS is the 11th, and looking at the calendar, the 11th is in 1 month. Okay. I could see the new set still dropping on Tuesday the 28th, and that could work. But that means we have an announcement like Monday. We certainly didn't get anything this Friday, but then again, as we discussed over the last few weeks, during spoiler season, the big news are on the Mondays and the Wednesdays more than the Friday, since there's a lot of spoiler going on and things moving fast. Usually they just provide us with just a recap on the Fridays, so we'll just hold our breath for next Sunday, Monday, and I hope that we'll get some nice news. I do plan to do a special stream depending on where the set releases. If I can take a few days off work, I will. I might even get a week off. I just usually don't take a lot of vacation days as a basic, and my my overtime bank is always full. So basically, when something happens next, I usually take a few days off, and I'll be doing a 12-hour stream for sure on release date, amongst other things. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's what makes the most sense. If we are to get the set released this month, we'd likely get a release date on Monday without any other news, just a release date. And we'd start to see the big new feature news on the 22nd and the 24th. And if there's a PTR would likely... No, there's... If there's a PTR to be done, it's going to be done next weekend. So maybe Monday they announce a release date. Wednesday they announce a PTR for 17, 18, 19. and then we get the big news during the week of the 21st, and then we get a release on the 28th, something along these lines. There are even our new feature. Yeah, there will be. There will be new features. If it was literally just set 6, it would have been released a long time ago. 6.6 I've been ready for a while. And this was the kind of feedback that they were giving us, like next November. They were very confident that 6.6 would be done for a January release, but that they wouldn't do that because of the holidays and everything. And now we're end of February, so in my mind, the way I see it is that it's not the set, the actual set, the cards that are holding out the release. It's additional features. Maybe the Immortal queue is not where they wanted to be before release. Maybe they're adding new features to the game, but they usually add features or do some kind of interface revamp when they do the big patches, and this has been a trend in the past. So I do expect some amount of interface, improvement with some new features and the new set. And we already know that there will be new feature because we will get a new format, and the new format will require a new queue at the very least. So there has to be new features in there alongside with the new set. There might also be change to what we already have, since we never had to format. So will they change the ladder queue that we have right now? Will Immortal be part of the ladder queue? How does that work, right? So there's a lot of stuff that will be changing with X as the new patch release. So it's really, this is going to be one of the biggest patch so far, and there's going to be tons of stuff. So it's not too far-fetched to think that things are they're holding out on the patch because they want to iron out some details and everything. So, hey, S02E! Welcome back to the stream. 3 news and not seeing anything even match March calendar. Well, if there's nothing in the calendar on the forums, maybe there's no official date yet. But looking at the calendar, usually they don't do it on the it could be the 4th or the 11th. These are the 2 dates. So card builder, Immortal filter, well, that's a minimum, right? You need to have deck restriction for Immortal and Standard. You need to add deck validation when you enter queues for both format. You need a new queue for Immortal. You likely have, well, maybe they're using the same structure for Immortal, maybe not, but they need to add, there's a bunch of stuff that will change with the next, just because of the new format. This is not something we've ever had, so, and even if there's low amount of interface change, there's a lot of code behind the software, behind the interface that will be changing as well, so definitely a significant change to the game. Even if we don't get any UI improvement, any new feature, it's still way bigger than just getting new cards. I'm not surprised to seeing them delaying the patches, and as we've seen with set 2 with AZ2, they delayed the patch, and we've got some amazing content that had very low amount of bugs and was playable first day. I did a 12-hour stream on the first day. There was no lag and everything was running smoothly. So if they're delaying for the patch, I trust them that it's for the right reasons, and I trust that they already shown that they're able to generate good releases for January 28th. All right, that would be Cosmic Crown Showdown, March 11th and 12th. Here you go. Here you go. And that's confirmed. That works. Alright, so let's up into into the spoiler season, shall we? Last week on a stream we did a quick exercise to see here if we would be able to create an MC deck that was also running Underworld Crusader, and quite frankly we came up with something that a base. It's not a, you know, it's nowhere near complete, it's nowhere near functional, but the exercise was to try to see if we could put MC and Crusader in the same deck. Also try to see if in Blood Wild we were able to fill the gem slot that we would have with relevant gems. But it's one thing to be able to mash MC and Crusader together. The other question was, will we have enough good gems to put in these sucketed cards to make them worthwhile? Because if you're just adding a sucketed card with a bad gem, you're not getting a lot of value. And while you're in the exercise, I think we come up with a base that seemed okay. You know, I don't think it's going to shatter the meta or anything, but to answer the question, is it possible to play MC with Crusaders? I think it will. I think we will be able to play MC with Crusaders. There's enough overlap already, and we may get more overlap with the new set as well from the unspoiled card. We're getting better resource base as well if we want to splash for a third resource. I really think that there's enough here for us to work with. I think I like Shoku with that kind of build, but we'll see for sure. But the thought of being able to play MC, Runeer, Hierophant, and Underworld Crusader in the same deck is very, very enticing to me. We'll see if we can make this work. Maybe that's going to be the first deck we'll be working on stream on release date. Who knows? Because that deck doesn't need a lot of new cards besides MC and a few one-offs from the new set. So this is something that we could build right away and start to see if we can have some fun with it. MC the Etcher of Nilzem. I might be butchering the name, but this is the preview card up there here. %90 of the gems are situational right now. They are, but there's a few cards where they make sense. Like you're building a mid-rangey aggressive decks, you have access to speed, you have access to intimidation, that makes a lot of sense. In white you have access to brown, which gives some reach, again works really well with the kind of mid-rangey deck. When you look at the majors in blood and wild, you have sacrifice, you have the one with the underworld, that also makes a lot of sense if you want to be mid-range / aggressive deck. And in the wild deck, the majors are not that great for the mid-range / aggressive decks, but you know, the one-off Grunskift and things of the sort. Actually, I think we may have made an error. Is Grunskift set 2? I think it's set 3. Grunskift. Armies of Myth. Okay, so that's right. So something like, you know, troop creation with the zombies here, it's not that bad as well. So there's a bunch of stuff we can do. But if we complete the notes here for MC Etcher of Nilzem, preview card up there. So this is a 2-cost artifact troop. It is a rare. It is a 2/2. It has a major socket and reads deck building. You can include this in your deck only if it contains at least 10 different named socketable cards. It also has diligence. Put a random socketed card from your deck into your hand. So you already know that you have at least 10 socketed cards, different named socketed card. That also means you'll likely have more than 10 socketed cards in your deck. But overall, what it reads is that every time it readies, for any reason, you'll be drawing a card from your deck. So this is a 2/2 that when readies draws a card. It is really reminiscent of Might Singer in that sense. Like it's an efficient 2/2 that gives you some amount of card advantage, which also can pack a punch. And how do you pack a punch with MC Etcher of Nilzem is that it is an artifact troop with no threshold requirement that has a major socket on 2. This is very, very, very good. there are multiple ways to make it so that you can attack with this troop and then ready and draw a card. Looking at the minor gems, you have intimidation and speed both in blood. That works really well. Although speed works usually if you are on the play more than anything else, but it is a consideration. In diamond, you can easily put flight on this guy, or +2 defense would work well to get a few attacks early in the game for this to ready. In ruby, we have swift strike. Although it's not that great, it does work to make sure that you can tackle in combat with early troops. We have Valor in Ruby that works really well, makes it a 3/3 when you attack on turn 3 with it, while playing a Valor. That's also a consideration. Sapphire doesn't work at all with it though. While you can get brown with one attack, but that's not really what you want to do, since you're not really going to be surviving combat and drawing a card. One that is really interesting is Cultivation on MC of Nozan. Because if you can attack and you get a resource, you already got some value out of your 2-drop already. And if it doesn't die for any reason, you get to draw a card and you just rent one more resource to your deck. So that could definitely be a thing in white decks. Like this one might just be the new Brave in white decks, because you put it on turn 2 and then on turn 3 you have access to 4 resources. If that's the kind of jump that makes sense for the new set with some amazing 4-drops, and there's definitely one that have been spoiled last night but by Curry himself, that could be something nice. So and in the if we look at the card is as in the bigger formats with Immortal, that opens up a ton of really strong gems that we had at the start of the game. This is not a kind of card where I would go Spell Shield with, just for the fact that if you go Spell Shield on MC, that means that you need 2 Wild Threshold at the start of the turn, and usually if you go Spell Shield on MC, you'd like to give it some evasion with, say, a champion power, but if you're going to go down that road, likely you're playing Sapphire champion, and Boris needs 2 Sapphire Threshold, and what's his name? Feather is going to require 4 charges, so that's not that great, but suffice to say, this card has the ultimate flexibility. It has good stat on curve, and it's very early in the game, so you can do some extremely nasty stuff with it. So this is, you know, let's just put it right there, very high opportunity cost. Like, to be able to just have the card in your deck, it has a very high opportunity cost, because the opportunity is that there's a deck building restriction on it. And that's a big opportunity cost. Like, you're going to have to put specific cards in your deck that you may not have wanted just to be able to play that card. The question then becomes, is this card so good that we can put subpar one-off cards just to be able to play that card? And we've seen with Crusaders, at first when the Crusader came out, everyone knew that they were powerful. The big question was, do we have enough good cards for their deck building restriction for them to be playable? Turns out that we had enough Underworld, we had enough Ardent Troops that we would be able to put a few one-offs that were still somewhat relevant with the, you know, the game plan of the deck, and be able to play these big powerful cards that were undercosted for the stats and also were provided a lot of flexibility with the socket. MC is a lot like that. It's the exact same pattern. So the question becomes, do we have the socketed cards to make this card happen? Because clearly the power level is there. If you're playing Diamond, you'd be hard pressed not to try and fit MC in your deck, because if you do, you can put Flight into MC and it's just going to hit for 2 and draw you a card every turn. If your opponent is not dealing with MC, you're just going to, you win the game. I mean, you're hitting for 2 and then you're drawing a card every turn. That's a whole lot of value right there. There's a lot less socketed cards than Ardent and Underworld Troops. That's true. We already have a few good ones that are artifact troops, and of course not all shards will be able to play that. But I think that, you know, like we have with the Crusaders, I think that the power level is definitely there. The question is that, do you have the right sucketed cards to bring in with it? I really feel that Wild is very strong with the sucketed cards right now, with Hierophant, with aspect of the Squirrel as well. There's a few stuff. Blood is very good with sucketed cards as well. So I really wouldn't be surprised. Diamond has a decent amount of sucketed cards, although I think there's 2 that are from set 1 and 2, so not sure where we're going with that. Sapphire has had good sucketed cards in the past, but they're rotating out. Ruby, there's some great sucketed cards coming into this new set, so I think there will be the opportunity for that. It's also nowhere near as impactful as a 4/4 on turn 3. If you get this guy to be a 5/5 on turn 2, it's going to be pretty damn impactful on the game. But then again, it being an artifact is a bit easier to be removed if you really want to deal with it. So we'll see where this lands, but very high opportunity cost. We'll say high power level and high flexibility. That removes artifacts from a card. Now you can target it. Is there ways to make spell shield gem balanced? There are ways to make it balanced, but I don't feel keep in mind, spell shield was balanced. The problem that we had with spell shield was that it was non-interactive. It wasn't because it wasn't balanced. Because, you know, yes, the Barriers deck were good at the time. It's just because of the kind of meta that we had. And there were a lot of other decks that were good as well. So the problem with spell shield was the non-interactive nature of it, and it's not fun most of the time for the great majority of players to face spell shield troops. So in that sense, you know, it's not that great of an experience. But the format where we had, you know, the Boreas decks with Eurofence, with spell shield, and all that stuff, there were still multiple decks that were viable, and there were ways to deal with it. It's just it was frustrating for the most part. Hey, Steely, how are you doing today? And again, we've got some very good answers to MC with Jamborn Prowlers. So if you're facing some blood decks, you're playing MC, you're not going to be happy unless you have ways to protect your troops. So we'll get there, right? One of the big things that we didn't see from set 6 yet is shard threshold fixers in terms of resources at uncommon level, because we are rotating out all the shards that we had, the double shards with no temporary resources. So will we get a replacement for that? That's going to be a good question. We will be getting second waves as well, but these are rare, so I expect them to at some point try to provide us with some fixing at a lower level than rare. So MC in limited, look for ways to make this survive combat. So where do we go from there? I think for limited, it's going to be extremely hard to work. So I'm just going to put a D. Even if you draft this pack one, pick one, you're going to be hard pressed, I believe. Well, we don't know yet. Maybe there's a ton of common cards that are good to play in decks, and also happen to, you know, also we happen to have enough different ones to be playing MC. But It's the same thing with Crusaders. You may draft it, you know, pack one, pick one. It's really hard to make this work. And if you're putting bad cards just to play the Crusader in Limited, it's a lot worse than doing subpar cards, one of subpar card in Constructed. So I think that, and keep in mind the deck building restriction doesn't mention a different one for Limited as well. So as we've seen in some cards. So here for Limited, I'd say my instinct tells me that very powerful, but you won't be able to have the deck achieve the deck building restrictions too often. Yeah, it's just you won't be able to achieve the deck building restriction too often. I'll just put it like that. It's the kind of card that you draft if you're in a competitive scenario, like at the top 8 of a CCS event, and you open MCS, you pack one, pick one, you're likely just not going to take it. You're going to take a good, strong uncommon over it, or an efficient removal uncommon over it, because you don't know that you'll be able to play it. At some point, if someone on the table has a lot of succeeded cards and gets past this guy, or girl, or this thing, appears to be a gargoyle, well, they're going to be very, very happy, but for the most part, they won't be. They won't be able to play it. So I'm not holding my breath on this one. This is clearly constructed playable. Power level is there. The question being, will there be archetypes with enough playable succeeded cards to meet its deck building restrictions? This is the big questions. Will we have enough good gems to succeed these cards as well? So there's a lot of things that needs to happen for this card to be good, but if it is, it's going to be super great. I think it's going to be super great, but I really love the card. This is up to now. This is the card that I want to try and make work the most with the new set. And the thought of running Crusaders, Hierophants, and this as a 5/5 for 2 in the same decks feels like there's enough power, individual power on cards that you should be able to make something work with that. We'll see if that happens to be the case, but I've got hopes for this card. All right, so yesterday on Twitter, I don't know if you follow Twitter, but Curry just posted a sweet spoiler, and I'm a fan of Coyotals. This is the race that appeals to me the most in the game. That they have the kind of mechanics that I really enjoy playing in a TCG, like the interrupts, the quick spells, looking at card selection, card draw, modifying stuff. Really love that. So I'm a Coyotal at Art for X, and yesterday this was spoiled by Curry on Twitter, and I'd be very curious to have you guys your opinion on this guy, because this girl. Because I really think this is a good card, but there's some tensions there, and we'll be discussing that for a second. So I'll let you review the card real quick while I'll take notes, and we'll see once we're a bit further there. So, Aspects of Lanupa. It is a 4 costs, 1 Wild and 1 Sapphire Threshold. It is an Ardent Troop. It is a troop. It is a Coyotal Warlock. It is a legendary card. It is not unique. I repeat, this is not a unique card. 2/2. And it reads very simple. When you play an action, your troops in all zones get +1/+1. So +1/+1 permanent in all zones, including itself, when you play an action. Peace Thinkers kind of card. This is my kind of card as well. Your Rainlock that gets banned, Immortal. It goes straight into my Rainlock deck. More aggressive Winter Moon decks around this will be significant. I really do like. We already have a good base for Coyotal decks. Like, just let's try to see like for constructed for a second there. Because if we're playing, we want actions. Like, let's look at the actions. Because obviously this card will be good. Even if you're playing a control deck with only this card, you'll be playing actions. This is going to get big, and this is likely going to attack as a 4/3, 4/5 on turn 5. So. And then everything in your deck becomes better. So the first question I would have is looking at the first 3 sets. What kind of actions do we have in Sapphire, Wild, and Diamond that are, that could be enablers, like cheap actions that would draw a card or things of the sort, right? So quick action and basic actions. And when we look at this, what remains, we've got Arcane Focus. That's a great card to work with that. We've got Transmogrified Fate as a removal. It's not the best removal, but that's something you can use. Well, we know that there's going to be a suit of removal for Diamond as well. This card is pretty great with interrupts, because if you can protect it, it's going to get bigger, and everything else is going to get bigger as you protect it. So things like interrupts and removals are great. Let's see, we still get Price Fall, we still have Change Course, Crackling Tide, that might get a new light. We could Gift of the Mentiate, but I don't think that's where we want to go. Bring to Justice, Clash of Steel, even Grace of Tyanost. Lenupa's Sight is still in there. So we've got Arcane Focus and Lenupa's Sight. So we definitely have a nice base there. What else? Now we're in the most costly action right there. This is not legal and constructed. That's too bad. Maybe Psychic Ascension deck works really well. Actually, Psychic Ascension with some amount of aspects of Lenupa feels great. You're creating actions, and while you play action, you're creating troop. So you're going wide, and this card enables you to go tall as well as going wild if you have Psychic Ascension. So these guys are buddies. We looked at the actions so far, so let's go into 5 shards real quick. Let's see what kind of actions we have, because we're getting some new tools here in terms of actions. In Diamond actions, we've got Chastise as a removal. That might be a necessary evil in constructed, we'll see. Divine's Favor might be playable in constructed. Action, not a ton. Let's go into Sapphire. Absolute Power, maybe. Consort of the Talon is definitely going to be played in constructed some form or another. We've got Deny with the new counter magic. We've got Dingle, like a pseudo 2-cost. It's the equivalent of 2-cost interrupt target troops, just that it transforms them into Dinglers. Let's see. Sapphire's Favor, maybe. So there's a few things. Here we've got Aspect of the Squirrel, that's great. If there's a gem that enables you to protect Aspect of Linopa, that might just be very good as well. So there's a few things right there that could lead to something nice. We don't have all the cards, so it's going to be hard to make this work, but definitely I think the power level is there. So what do we do with this card? Okay, so it scales with actions, affects all zones. That's really important. So you're clearly not playing this card without having a critical mass of action. So in a sense, there's a I would say there's a significant opportunity cost. And there's also a significant setup cost as well. Significant, because a 2-2-4-4 is really bad. Like, you're never ever playing this in constructed. You're not even playing this in limited. So the stats for its cost are bad. Like bad stats for cost. So mobilize draw tree would be good in deck. I want troops with aspects and actions. Of course it would be very good. Goes into really aggressive deck like Young and Thunderfist here, Fox Scout, Wakuna Acro Feather, and some control effects like Deny and add effects like Arcane Focus. I think Glyph of Sky, maybe that's the big enabler for glyphs to be played in constructed. Nah, I don't think so. Maybe there's enough, action matters cards in the set that this makes it work, but there's still a significant setup cost, right? Because you're playing that card on turn 4. You didn't really impact the board significantly. And keep in mind, we're speaking about Crusaders and Hierophant on turn 3 presently. And we're talking about Might Singer of Ages on turn 2. We're talking about Daughter of the Poet on turn 2. We're talking about MC on turn 2. There's a lot of power level directly on the board at these kind of at this kind of state in the game. So where does this fit? So this is a good, if you play this on turn 4 and it gets killed, right? I think that the way you're going to play it is that you're going to play this on your turn 5 or 6, and then you're going to play a actions, like either something to protect it, or just quick actions to get a pump. Because even if it gets killed, like if they use a removal on it, if you're able to just play one action in the meantime, you just buffed your whole deck with one action, and including cards in your hand. So maybe you play Mind Call with it. One thing that would be great with it is Cosmic Calling, another card that we'll be reviewing soon, which on turn 2 might be able to grab this one and give it Mobilize. That could be, we could be looking at turn 3 aspect of the Lanopa plus an action. Now we're talking. So definitely something that could happen, right? I don't think you run Mind Call. We would need a very good critical mass of cards that cares about you playing actions for Mind Call to start to be even considered. Like maybe you have aspects of Lanupa with some amount of phoenixes and Lanupa Sight and a bunch of other stuff, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that. Let's look at one cost. Like, one thing that we'll be looking for Coyotl decks in this new world is 1-drops are going to be insanely good with Mobilize. And we've already seen a few cards with Mobilize that seem to be constructed playable. So your 1-drops, whatever they do, whatever stats they have on them, if you're running a critical amount of Mobilize in your deck, they might as well also read Exhaust provides you with 2 temporary resources. And if that's the case, a lot of things change. You know, random 1-drops with some amount of, you know, contextual effects might be very, very good in the new world of set 6. So things like, you know, we've got a few other cards that were spoiled recently where things seem to be, you know, they didn't seem to be quite good, but maybe in a new context of the set, they might just be way better than it appears, right? Alright, so where do we go with limited? Do you play this, your average limited deck will run usually between 4 to 6, 7 actions. Is that enough to run aspects of Lanupa? Doesn't seem so. One thing though, very, very, very important thing with aspects of Lanupa. And let that sink in. Valor, a Valor is an action. If you have Valor Creation in your deck, aspects of Lanupa becomes insane. Because you're going to play a lot of 1-cost actions and you're going to buff your whole deck. Something to keep in mind. And it's in an Ardent. Valor is an Ardent mechanic, so keep an eye out on... Whoa. On cheap actions. Valor. So we already have what's his name? The Howling Plains Alpha, 2-cost 2/2 that creates a Valor. That's pretty good in some kind of a mid-range deck. We already have a deck, right? Let me just, while we're brainstorming on this card, let's just go in and look at a deck real quick. So this is a deck that have been popular in the ladder recently, and I really enjoy playing in it. It's playing Josephina as the champion, and it's essentially a Valor deck. You're running Satyr Rosebard, you're running Moonrise Elder, and you're running Howling Blades Alpha, and a bunch of other stuff with some amount of Crusaders. Now, and Hero of Legion. We already have access to Howling Plains Brewgrass that provides 3 different resources. We will have access to all the wells that we need for a Tri-Shard Coyotl deck. And aspects of Lanupa with some amount of Valor would look very, very good in a deck like that. We've got a good critical mass of troops. Valor's makes us draw cards. We've got some team pump with the Howling Plains Alpha and the Elder. And we can also just sliding a few aspects of Lanupa as maybe 2 off in the list like that, replacing the Elder of Lost Ages, for instance, or one of the Guide, or, you know, any of the low-cost troops, and all of a sudden you have something very cool. And an aggressive deck playing in a critical mass of low-cost cards is also going to have a field trip with that, because if you have a bunch of 1-drops that doesn't really impact the board, and you play this guy here, this girl here, you get a few Valors in your hand. All of a sudden, that's just sounds like a ton of stuff, a ton of fun, right? If you go Tri-Shard Coyotl Spine Scutter, Spine Scutter, Spine Scutter. At the start of the turn, you have 3 or more different thresholds. No, this is not good. It's a 2/2 on turn at the start of your turn 4. That's not great. I don't think we'll play enough Mobilize in any deck for this to be good, but maybe if we have a troop that provides like 2 thresholds when it comes into play, something along these lines. The problem with Sizigi is that it reduces the cost of existing card. So if you create more Valors, after that they're still going to be 1 cost. So if we're going cost reduction and we're already playing 3 shard with Coyotls, I would much rather go with something like Cyclone Shaper. That would reduce the cost of all actions by 1, therefore making Valors costing 0. That could be a thing. No, that might just be true. I mean, 3 shard, if you can go 2 shards, it's usually better for consistency than going 3 shard, but I was just using this as an example. Like, clearly, Aspects of Lanupa with some amount of Valor is pretty good. We already have a good shell of a 2 shard deck here that creates a decent amount of Valors, and that's also good. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, depending on the Valor creator that we get, you know, because usually Valor creation is diamond oriented. However, there's a world where you know, Sunny Rules board and Aspects of Lanupa feels like best buddies though. Like really cool cards together. And Outing Plains Alpha, if you like this line here on turn 2 Alpha, turn 3, play Satyr's Worst Part, play the Valor, attack with a 4/4 and draw card is so strong of a line. I really love this, like this interaction, these two here together. I think they're going to be part of the meta for set 6. I don't know what kind of shell will we have, but Hero of Legion as well is very, you know, overcosted for its effect on the game. So we've got a good shell like Elder, Bard, Alpha, Legion. The rest we can switch. We might not even play the Crusader, but it's likely that we will, honestly. But there's a ton of room to work with such a list. We're running like 6 removal, with a bunch of troops and some amount of Valor creation. This is the kind of deck where Aspects of Lanupa would shine for sure. We'll see. We'll see. But we could just play, you know, a ton of Sapphire actions that works well. There's a lot of potential. Back to our notes though. If we look at where are my notes? If we look at Limited for a second, I don't think this will be great in Limited. Granted, if you just play, well, let's do an exercise here. How many champions do we have in Sapphire and Wild that create an action? So looking at, we won't have access to, we will have access to Hero Fall Champion and the new ones. Hero Fall Champions and a new one. So Hero Fall Champions in Sapphire and Wild. Do we have action creation? We've got draw a card, discard a card, create a Warbot, stun something, create an Arcane Banner, Mending Banner, Dreadling, +3/+3. So we don't have much of action creation in the old champions, but the new ones, we have champions for Ardent that do create Valors. So there might be, if you first draft this, you go into this archetype, you make sure that your champion power generates at least 1 Valor for you, and you play Aspects of Lanupa, and if it doesn't die, you create a Valor, put in on Aspects, it becomes a 4/4, everything else is a 1/1, +1/+1, and that might work. Because this is very strong of an effect. For cheap actions, pairs well with champions that create actions. So in Limited, I think this is likely going to be a D, in the sense that very powerful but you need a critical mass of actions for it to be good. Likely only usable with champions that generate valors. So the new champions, let's see. What did they look like, the new champion? 5 shards. I should keep that page up. New champions, what do you guys look like? Do we have someone in the right? I guess this would be Cleric Marcel. No. Valor. This would be Octavia. So let's see Octavia. Octavia for 6. Create a valor for each different ardent races amongst three you control, put them into your hand. So I guess that would work in an Octavia deck. On turn 6, you create a bunch of valor. On turn 6, you play Auspex. You create 1 or more valor, and then you play the valor on Auspex, and then you're in a good position, I guess. This one doesn't provide valor. We only have 1. We only have Octavia, so that's not that great. We've got a rare resource. Do we have valor creators in there that are good at all? This works with Valorous. This works with Valorous. No valor creation though. This does not create valor. This does not create valor. Wasn't there an action in Y that created valor? The favor. Yeah, the favor create 2 valor. Okay. That could be, it's not that great, but that could be a thing in Sapphire. I don't think we have any valor creation though. It's going to be hard. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for limited one on this guy on this card, but definitely there. This one, playable and constructed, power level, Christian being. There be an archetype with enough actions and troops that would make this work. And this is the big question. Also, it doesn't have evasion. Doesn't have evasion. This is significant. It doesn't have evasion, so 2 tomahawks with bards. Huh. 2 tomahawks is, well, 2 tomahawks is a good point. It creates 2 valors each turn as well. 1 valor, 2 valor. Interaction-based bombs in limited, I'm sure need good draft for it though. I don't think you run this card in your draft deck because you have multiple actions in your deck. I think that you run Auspex with champions that create valor, and this is how you make this work. From what we have, it means you're going to run 3 shards or you're going to run Octavia. These are the options. You're either running this with a splash or wild or sapphire in a ruby something deck or in a diamond something deck. But it's a cool card. I mean, wow. It works really, really well. The next one I wanted to talk about this morning. Yeah, I love this card. I love this card so much. Coyotals are awesome. Coyotals are life. Coyotals are the best. So cool. So great. Alright, so let's go to the next one. Cosmic Calling. 3 cost. 1 diamond threshold. 1 diamond and sapphire threshold. It doesn't have a faction. It's a quick action. There are no traits. It is a rare. Another rare that is going to fetch a very good price. It's not unique. It doesn't have attack and defense. The card reads Mobilize. So first hand, we've got a cost reduction mechanic that will, when you exhaust a troop as part of paying the cost of this card, you can reduce its cost. So instead of paying 3, you can pay 1 and exhaust a troop that you control for this card to cost 1. Obviously, you're not going to be able to play that on turn 1. You won't have 2 different thresholds, and you're not going to have a troop. Or you will have 2 different thresholds, but you won't have a troop. It's going to be very, very hard. However, if you play a 1-drop, I think it is, we can assume that if you play a 1-drop and you're playing 2 shards, I think it's legitimate to expect that you'd be able to achieve 2 diamond and sapphire threshold by turn 2 and have a 1-drop. There's a ton of 1-drops in diamond that are decent. There's a decent amount of 1-drops in sapphire that are good. Thunderfield Seer is the first on the list. So there's a decent amount of stuff. If you're looking at the bigger formats, we've got Ancestral's Chosen in Sapphire as well. It's a very cool Sapphire cards, but you likely want to play this with a decent amount of 1-drops and 2-drops. The other option is to play this with a champion power that creates a troop, so that you can use that as a ramp instead of as an actual troop. That's another thing that you could consider, like having a constant that generates dreadlings, for instance. If you can generate a dreadling, then you can reduce the cost of Cosmic Calling. So what do we do with Cosmic Calling? There's Mobilize on it, but there's a lot more text. So look at the top 3 cards of your deck. All right, I love this. Put a revealed non-resource card into your end. It gets mobilized. Okay. Now we're serious. Now we're talking. Put the remaining cards into your deck, and when we put cards into our deck, they get put in a random place into the deck. So mobilize, and it targets non-resource card. Whoa, not the right tool. All right, mobilize. It's a quick action. I really mobilize on a basic speed card feels really bad, because the problem with that is that you cannot use your mobilize trigger without opening your defense up. Because if you're exhausting your troop at basic speed, it means you are during your turn, and it means that you're not going to be able to block with these troops, and you don't usually have like 3, 4, 5 spare troops to mobilize with. So and you might want to play other mobilized cards during the same turn as well. So defense is going to be hard with a lot of mobilized cards. However, if you have mobilized on a quick action, now everything changes, because you can still get your cards to block, and if you have to chum block, you can still use the card to chum block, then use the mobilize trigger on a quick action. Having mobilized on a quick action, I cannot understate this, it is a world of difference than having mobilized on a basic speed card. And this being a quick action really makes things interesting. It means that you can play 1 and 2 drops, play defense, and depending on what happens, decide to go with Cosmic Calling, look at your top 3 cards, get a non-resource card, give it mobilize for 1. This is great. And if you have 2 cards, you're going to get a card, it will get mobilized if it's a quick action. You can use your other troop and might be able to play the other cards as well. So and this having the possibility of being played on turn 2 is really insane. Because if you can look at your top 3 card on turn 2, get one that will be mobilized in the same format where you have access to Arcane Focus, for instance, We're speaking about a decent amount of value right there. So we need troops, right? If you're playing Cosmic Calling, you need troops, and even more so, you need troops on your opponent's turn. That means that Dreadlings, for instance, are not that great with Cosmic Calling. They still are. Don't get me wrong, they still are, because if you can create a Dreadling on command without investing any resources on your turn, you just ramp 2 resources, and that's insanely good value. I'm looking at Shoku right now, and guys, remember when remember when Cressida was ruling the format? Because of course there was Majesty, but even without Majesty, Cressida with the same amount of L as the other champion is just insane, because it guarantees that you're going to be on 4 resources on turn 3, and if you have other accelerants, it would guarantee that you are at 5 on turn 3. Well, Shoku for 2 charges can create a Dreadling that can generate 2 resources for you for a turn. That's one hell of a ramping proposition on 2 charges. Imagine a world where you can use your Shoku activations to ramp for 2 resources twice during a game. You'll be 4 resources ahead of your opponent in that game, and likely during the first 4 turns of the game. This is an insane amount of ramp. Insane amount of ramp. And there's a reason why things like the Eldrazi and Magic were so good. There was so many, there was, you know, the ramping was too efficient. There were resources that were producing too many resources in the short amount of time. And seeing these playable mobilized cards make me really wonder what's going on here, because yes, that's a 3 shard, but that's not my point. Is that if there is a world where you can play Cosmic Calling with Shoku, for instance, let's just say, let's not think about Cosmic Calling itself. Let's just think at Mobilize as a mechanic. If there's a world where we can build a critical mass amount of mobilized card into a deck with a champion like Shoku, then Shoku actually reads gain 2 temporary resources for the turn. That's insane. That is insane for what, 19 elt? That is insane. I really hope that this doesn't happen, because if it happens, it has the potential to be broken. It helps that the champions that create troops are wild, and in general, the mobilized cards are associated with the Coyotals and more with Sapphire and Diamond. So that's great. It means that there's a lot less opportunity for this to happen. But if there's any way to get a critical mass of very good mobilized card with something like Shoku, we're going to have a problem. I'm going to call it right there. We're going to have a problem. I hope that this is not the case, but I sure as hell will be one of the players who try to make this happen. Because imagine a world where you play Cosmic Calling, and you don't really need to play this on turn 2, right? You don't need to play this on turn 3 either. Just imagine a world where you're playing 3 shard Coyotals with Shoku. That could be a thing. That could be a thing. Mobilize is certainly interesting. Grant you that people could get some crazy range stuff. Well, it's not even crazy range stuff. It gets mobilized, so I'm assuming right there that if you target with Cosmic Calling a card that already has mobilize, it will have mobilize 2, so to speak. That could be. I mean, there's a lot of cards in the game where if you give them free 2 cost reduction, they become extremely hard to deal with. Let's just think about that real quick. On turn 2, no. No, I had a line in mind, but it doesn't work. The other champion that creates a troop is Monica Shin. in the bigger formats. Monica Chin creates a Battle Hopper. That could be a reusable, mobilized, enabler. Turn 3, 6 cost guy with mobilized. Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? But say you play Cosmic Calling on turn 2 or 3, and you hit a 4-drop. Even a 5-drop. I mean, this enables a 5-cost card to be played on turn 3. And you can play it on turn 2 alongside something else. And if you're playing a 5-drop on turn 3, you're doing it. Now, even if you're playing a 3-drop on turn 3 for 1 cost and also playing something else, you gain an insane amount of acceleration in a deck. Like this card, it will just take your deck and just fast drag it into the next turn, right? Next turn, what's going to happen is that you're going to play Cosmic Calling, and on the same turn, you're going to play something else that is relevant. Or on the next turn, you're going to play something like 2 things. Like you're just going to empty your hand. So you're going to want some amount of card draw with it. But what's great is that this card is selection and draw. And it doesn't even say draw on the card. So it doesn't interact with card draw. But man, this card is good. It doesn't, thank God it doesn't draw resources. Because that would be awkward. But let's say you just hit peak with that. Next turn you get a free peak. Why not? Peak for 0. It doesn't take much, right? Peaks. Free Arcane Focus is pretty darn good as well. Even if you're not getting the full value out of it. Any troop, like any 3 or 4 drops, which should usually be the majority of your deck, is going to be great. If you get something that costs like 5 or 6, you're doing it. You're going to play them on turn 3 or 4. That's great. What would be a bad hit? Any cards that you get really with this is going to be great, no matter what's happening. Assuming that you have something to mobilize with, and if you're playing Cosmic Calling, you most likely have something to mobilize with. So it's a weird card, right? Because it's a lot of things. Like it replaces itself most of the time, unless you just get 3 resources. It provides selection. It's quick. It can be cast for 1. And it also reduces the cost of the next card that you draw. So in most scenarios, I feel, well, best case scenario, it is a 1-cost card that draws your card and reduces its cost by 2. If that would be like, if this is more than 50% of the time, you get a 1-cost card that draws you a card and reduces its cost by 2. It is just insane. Like, this card would be too good for Constructed, right? Would be too good for the game. If this would be straight up 1 cost, draw a card, reduce the cost by 2, it would be too good. Now we do have to work with Mobilize. So you do need a troop. This is quick though. So you do it before the end of the turn, even if you do it for 3 without the Mobilize trigger. You're drawing a card and you're adding Mobilize to the card. You can then play a troop and mobilize your troop, play the card with the reduced cost on that next turn. So even scenarios where we pay 3 for that effect, I think we're good to play. Are we good? Is that good enough? Let's think about current Constructed. Would we play 3 costs, look at the top 3 cards, get 1, and you can mobilize? You make that card mobilize. Would that be good enough? On a quick action. That's a good question. That is a very good question. Could be part of a control deck. I guess control deck if you have a champion that generate chump blockers, that could be it. The discard is there's a lot of conditions on the card, but when it's good, it's going to be game winning good. And the fact that it's quick, like you can't just play defense and just be good with it. Hey, good morning, Pudding. It's a complicated card, and I really love the fact that it does something really, really powerful, like providing selection and cost reduction on one card is great. The fact, if you're playing this 4-1, no matter what's happening, it's just better. It's a quick action. Okay, so let's look at another scenario. Let's say that you put mobilize on the card that you draw, but you don't have any troop on the board somehow. Like they kill your troop that you used to mobilize with this card. Like you had a 1/1, a Thunderfield still on the board on turn 1, and you're on the draw. And on turn 2, you play your Diamond Threshold, and they attack with like a Crusader with speed or something. And then you chump block with your Thunderfield Seer, and before damage during combat, you mobilize the Seer to play Cosmic Calling. And then you put mobilize on a card, and you lose your Seer, so you don't have any troop on the board. It's still a quick action Arcane Focus that looks at 3 cards instead of 2. If you just have 1 troop on the board. That's a good proposition. Like, there's... The scenario was this costs 1, but the mobilize effect on the card that you draw is irrelevant, is still pretty good. Because you get 1 cost, look at 3 cards, and put 1 into your hand. At quick. That's perfectly fine. That's constructed playable. The scenario where you play 3 for this card, and you put mobilize on a card, and mobilize becomes relevant on the card. I think it's good enough. Because you're paying 3 for this one, but you're getting 2 cost reduction on the next card. So in a sense, it did cost you 1. Overall, it cost you 1 in the end to do this. So I think it's still worthwhile. Although this is a weird scenario, but it's still worthwhile. The scenario where you pay 3 for this and you don't get the mobilize, it feels not good enough for constructed. And the scenario where you pay 1 for this and you get to reduce the next card for 2, it means that this card netted you 1 additional resources. Because you pay 1 for it and the next card is reduced by 2, so you're +1 resources overall. It's not just a free card if you get the 2 mobilize triggers going. You're gaining 1 resources in the exchange. This is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know what to think about this card. My gut feeling feels that this is going to be annoying as hell to play against this card. Because if your opponent play this, even for 3, you have to wonder what's going on. Like, something is going to happen, that's going to cost less than it should be costing, and that's scary. That's very, very scary. So, where do you go? What do you guys think about this card? I've been rambling a lot about this card, but this one is really, really cool. I love the card. I want to play with that card and see. It's a hard, and do we have any? I'm not that knowledgeable about MTGs or other TCGs, but do you guys know of any card that would be like that in other TCGs? Or close to it, to have some kind of a reference point to know if it's good or not in constructed? Okay, so with all that said, where do we go with this? So, modular cost cares about troop, what you having a troop on the board. What else? Ramp. Ramp like effect. So we have four scenarios with the card, right? Nice that Earth Mother is in Kyoto. So 4 scenarios. The first one, we don't mobilize anything. That's not great. If we get either end of the mobilize, this card ended up costing 1, which is obviously fairly good for constructed. So this is good enough. And if we had 2 mobilize triggers, this is netting us 1 additional resource, and providing a selection. Obviously, that scenario is just insanely good. And going to lead to a blowout. So, even turn 3, even turn 4. If you happen to have two, you know, and keep in mind, turn 3 might just mean, you know, at the end of your opponent's turn, just before your turn 4. And if that's the case, it's very, very good. Like, even late game, it's good. There's no part of the game where it's not good. If you have no board position and you draw this, at the very least, it's going to draw you another card, and with or without cost reduction. And if you're just going to draw another card that draws a card, or just a chump blocker or something, that may still be relevant. When you're behind, it's worse. On parity, it's pretty darn good. When you're ahead, it's okay. And when you're behind, it's not that great, but it could be a lot worse. Well, it's not great when you're behind. So it's the kind of card where you want to have a mid-range. It really has a mid-range feel out of it, but if you play that on turn 2 out of a 1-drop on turn 1, you're going to be ahead in that game by a fair margin. And that's an understatement. So, ramp-like effect. Not great when behind. But pushes the victory in all other scenarios. Okay, so how do we like this for limited? I think this is this is not necessarily a limited bomb, but this is clearly B, right? Like, you will likely play this for 1 at the end of your opponent's turn, and then you get to play a reduced cost troop on the next turn as well. So that works fine. Good selection. Getting the 2 mobilize effect should be easy in limited. I feel like this is a strong B. Like, if you open in this card, pack 1, pick 1, you'd be hard pressed not to get that card, because unless you have a bomb uncommon, it is two different threshold, but most limited games you will have 2 drops, and playing this, you know, on turn 3 or later should enable to play that card, get something, and then play that something on the same turn. So this is not a bomb. Like, it's not going to win you the game in itself, but it's going to give you a lot of velocity and a lot of speed. That's great. This is playable. It's just provides a lot of value. Fits well into... fits more into a aggressive slash... into a mid-range strategy. I think this is a mid-range card, and this is going to be a stable mid-range card in the Diamond Sapphire decks of the future. Yeah, like there's so many lines right now where this card could be good. And we're speaking about the two shards with the most quick actions to be played. Like Sapphire and Diamond has tons of quick actions to work with. There's a ton of great stuff you can do with this card for sure. You can switch the image on the screen, whatever card you're talking about, instead of leaving Cosmic Coin. Yeah, let's try to see. Let's look at the spoilers. So we want turn 1, turn 2 enablers for this card. Cerulean Sage is, for mid-range deck, it's just perfect for a card like that. It's a 1-drop, and once it starts running, it does 2 damage. It's 2/3 Flight Troop for 1. I think Cerulean Sage with the mobilized Sapphire Shell is definitely going to be something. Consult of the Talon in a mobilized shell, that's great. If you had Fort Mobilize, although it's unlikely that you have 4 troops on the board, but if you do, it could be free, but you have no defense after that, that's not a great proposition. Deny is great. Deny with Mobilize would be, like any interrupts with Mobilize are just very, very pesky. Free Dingle would be great with Mobilize. Even Dread End with Mobilize, like, being able to do this for 3 costs and then play a troop sounds like a good proposition. So we already have some nice cards with this. If you're playing a Sapphire Shell with some amount of Underworld troop, Jorgen's Workshop providing you with a Dreadling every turn could be something. Like, there could be something to it. Sapphire's Favor is a quick action, works well with Cosmic Calling just for the fact that it's a quick action. Okay, so we've got some stuff here. Where's Diamond? Diamond. No, nothing here. Diamond, we've got... no... Diligence Conscript, a 1-drop. I don't think that's the kind of enabler you want for Constructed. Free Chastis is going to be good. Free Daughter of Poet. Okay. For target opposing troop when this leaves play. Free Decree of Banishing. Diamond's Favor works well. Intrepid Conjurer is a 1-drop, although it's an aggressive one. Llama Herder works really well with Cosmic Calling. You just get a llama, so that means you have more. Actually, Llama Herder, when I think about it, let's just look at this card real quick, because something's going on here. Like these 2 cards here, something's going on. Like, let's say you have a Mobilize, Sapphire Diamond Mobilize deck. You want to have enablers, right, for your Mobilize. So, and ideally you want these enablers to have diligence triggers as well, so you're just chaining value out of them. Let's look at these 3 cards real quick. So, 1 cost, 0/3. It's a fine blocker, early blocker. And it transforms into a 2/3 with flight that your opponent will have to deal with. Well, that's great. Well, this is a great target for Mobilize. And it's a 1 cost. Let's look at Midnight Gatherer. It's a 2 cost that has flight and diligence. Choose 1. Put a random resource from your deck into your hand. That's great. That's really good. Like, you hold this on defense, you use Cosmic Calling on it, and then not only do you get to draw a card and reduce its cost, you get to ensure that you draw a resource. And if you transform it, it becomes where are the created cards? It becomes this thing. where this thing is a stats equal to the different thresholds that you have, life drain, flight, steadfast. So definitely a good target for a Cosmic Calling card. So you're just getting resources and drawing a card to reduce the cost of the of the drawn card, and you're not too sad to use Mobilize on your own turn on Midnight Gatherer. On the next turn, you can just transform it into a flight life drain troop that is still significant to the board. And if you use Cosmic Calling, you're likely, well, you do have at least two different thresholds, right? But this guy here is going to be insane with in a Mobilize shell. Think about it. The more you mobilize, the more troops you get. The more you then mobilize again. Let's say you Llama Herder on turn 2. And then on turn 3, you play defense. You've got Cosmic Calling in your hand. Maybe you got a removal. Maybe you got a piece of card draw. And you pass the turn. Your opponent does something. Place any troop. Before the end of the turn, Cosmic Calling your Llama Herder. You get to draw a card, add Mobilize to it. Let's say you hit another Cosmic Calling. Why not? Whatever, right? This release and create a Llama. You now have 2 troops to mobilize with. That sounds like a good plan. And if you're speaking of mobilized cards, I mean, we have draw 3 here. Where it is? We have this gem here in a mobilize Sapphire Diamond deck that draws 3 cards. So if you created a Llama at the start of your third turn, at the start of your 4th turn, you now have 2 troops, and this could just cost 3, and draw 3 for 3 is perfectly fine. It would be constructed playable all the way. Draw 3 for 3. And if you do this, then the next turn you have 1 more troop. So Llama Herder will be very, very good with Mobilize. Like, are we getting to a point where we get a somewhat of a Mobilize shell? Certainly feels so. Like, Sage is good with Mobilize. Like, if you don't have to attack to make him 2-3 flight troop, that's great, because once it is a 2-3 flight troop, this is certainly constructed playable. It reminisces of Delver of Secrets in that sense. It's not as good as Delver of Secrets, but this really feels like a Delver-ish card, right? Like, if you're a control deck and you're playing Llama Herder, you're just, increasing your board as you reduce the cost of your troops. That's just great. It's not even unique. Imagine the turns where you mobilize twice. Like, if on your 4th turn you mobilize twice, you played for 8 total resources of card on your 4th turn. You're going to win that game. Like, you're going to be ahead by a very, very long margin. This card is going to be pretty limited. I don't think so. It's a 2-2 for 2. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities to attack with it. But if there's enough Mobilize Unlimited, now we're talking. Or ways to make this evasive. But I agree, this card is going to be... This card is very, very strong. The fact that it can also power himself is great, because you can exhaust 1 or more of the troops you control and make this bigger. What that means is that this card, not only does it enables Mobilize, it's also a Diligence enabler himself. It cannot exhaust himself, but if you pair it with, say, Midnight Gatherer, then you don't need to attack to make sure that you get a diligence trigger. If you pair it with Cerulean Sage, you don't need to attack with Sage to exhaust it. Actually, let's look at this line real quick. Like, we're going to play Cerulean Sage turn 1. Let's say we don't have a good attack or whatever, right? Your opponent is playing a Ball Spasm on turn 1, so you can attack. You will lose it. On turn 2, you play Llama Herder. Basic. You can use it right away, right? Basic. You exhaust your Cerulean Sage, and you didn't need to attack. And next turn, you get to attack with the Sage. And you get to mobilize this guy. They're just starting to see patterns there, like Midnight Gatherer with Llama Herder on the 2-drops for a mobilized deck with some amount of Cerulean Sage. And if there's just one more good Diligence troop at 1 cost in Diamond or Sapphire, we're kind of doing it, right? I don't think they will ever print a card that lets you mobilize to 0. I think that would be bad for the game, whatever it is. Actually, we do have one card that mobilized to 0, right? It's a PvE card, though. Here it is. 10 cost, 5 mobilized. This card mobilized to 0. Here it is. I don't think they'll ever do that in Constructed, but in Limited, this is fine. So, Llama Herder, Cerulean Sage, Midnight Gatherer. I really love this card. This card is so good in mid-range decks. Even in control decks, it's good. It's like, it's both enabling, making sure that you hit your shard drops while hitting them for 1 every turn. And it's also a finisher. This card is the big deal. Like, there's so many good rares in this set. We didn't see that many, you know, we didn't see that many, you know, we've seen Chase Legendaries for sure. Like, this Prince Zakaz Auspex is going to fetch a decent price. These two are going to be pricey for sure. Looking at legendaries, we've got this not that great, but maybe when Crocozor hits other legendaries. We don't have that many legendaries. Like Absolute Power is going to fetch a price. Not going to play that much, but it's going to keep a good price because it's powerful. Lorenzo is going to fetch a hell of a price. Like Daughter of Poets is going to fetch a good price as well. Like the legendaries are, we've seen some decent amount of legendaries that have good price. Hey Mokug, how are you doing? Looking at the rare real quick, like Constructed playable Crypt Curse is, but it's not going to fetch a good price in my opinion. No, we've got Llama Herder is going to fetch a good price. Midnight Gatherer is going to fetch a good price. Lorgar Curator is going to be good in a control shell. I wouldn't be surprised for this to be good. Scapegoat is going to be something for sure. Outlaw with Diligence, Creative Valor, or Transform with Speed. Scars of War is going to be a good card. In Sapphire, Academy of Cerulia is going to fetch a price in the first few weeks. Deny is going... Everyone playing Constructed will want to have access to some amount of denies. Dread End is going to fetch price. Typhon Sky Shaper is very good. I wouldn't be surprised this fetches the price. Aspect of Squirrel will be Constructed playable. It's going to be a code card to work with. Woken Drokatar is just so good. There's going to be a Drokatar deck. MC and the rare slot is great. Cosmic Calling is going to be a card as well. Even Witch here is not, it might have a place. Like, we've got a decent amount of value right there. Add to it all the whales. This is likely going to be one of the most valuable sets that we would have had in a long time. Even the Earth Mother. Like, Earth Mother, I know this is not in the right chart, but if we go back to our tri-shard Coyotel idea, this has diligence gain a resource. And if you can ensure that you don't attack with her, that could be something. I wish I could have 130 packs. I won't be doing any constructed for a while. We touched about what we thought about set release for looking at a calendar real quick. Looking at the calendar, we're February 11th, we're Saturday. We know that the next Cosmic Crown Showdown is the 11th as well, but in March. Looking at the news real quick, what did we have? We had... Hello? That's weird. Okay. Scapegoat here. That's not the news I wanted. This one. So we don't have a date for Arbor Day, but we have to assume that this is going to be with the set 6 patch at this point, right? So let's just calendar. It's set 670. Sorry. Hey, that works. Okay, so looking at the dates here, we know that March here, 11th here is going to be the Cosmic Crown Showdown. We know that 10th February 10th was the Arbor Day. I don't think they want to delay the Arbor Day like for a month or so. If we are to get the set in February, I feel that and we've seen releases on Tuesdays as well, so I wouldn't, if we get it in February, it's either the 21st or the 28th. I guess there's a world where we get a because right now the big news are on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we get a recap on Friday. So this is the speed, the pace where the news have been going. So the next big news opportunity is going to be next Monday. So looking at the schedule, at the earliest, like, and this is very not likely, but if we're going to get the set in February, assuming that we get the set on a Tuesday, we're looking at 21st and 28th. I really think that if we get a set in February, we get it on the 28th. We could get the set on the March 2nd, but it's just 1 week before CCS, and there's a new format and there's a ton of stuff. So I think that, you know, it would be best if we get at least 2 weeks, at least 1 weekend before the set. Like, the 28th is just a week before the CCS, so I got, looking at the calendar real quick, I guess we get the big news like on the 13th or on the 15th, and then that week we get like all the details about the new mechanics, how the Immortal queue will be, working, if they're implementing any big new features or changing to the game. This is where we'll get the news, and then we get the release like shortly after. If the release is on the 28th, maybe on the 13th or the 15th we get a news that we'll get a PTR here, and then they have a week to work things out and release on the 28th. That could also be a thing, but My money is that the next big news that we get related to the release date is going to be on like on the 13th, on the 28th. They could release, you know, on Wednesday 15, announce a release on Wednesday 15 for the 28th, if we're getting it on the 28th. But I think that, you know, 13 release on 28, big, you know, new functionality news on 15, big functionality news on 28th or 23rd, like all cosmic or immortal world function or new like features of such. That could be a thing right there. Now let me just catch up with the chat real quick, see what you guys are saying. So, oh wow, there's a lot of chat right there. This year is also true. Okay. I've learned from the last 2 sets, buy the legends first and packs second. Just have to be ready to exhaust, right? Yes. Whatever, if you lose in overpaying for the cheap legend, I would save for the high price legends. I could afford more than 30 packs. Okay, I'm with that. My experience. Just noticed that at $20 at the first 48 hours though. Yep, they are. He finds the alpha. Yeah. Have to wait for the first wave, huge price drop. Overpriced ones are really dry. Execution March 17. That will almost certainly be released weekend, so I March 17, I think it's too far ahead. I think we will have the new set for the Cosmic Crown Showdown. Like we did in last October. This is where we had the set, right? November and December, we had the set just before the release. It was in not in October. It was in June, July, something like that. They gave copies of the card to everyone for that CCS. Most launch dates are announced less than a week before the patch. February is still quite possible. It'd be nice to if X implemented the token system of goal. Yeah, guys, if you didn't read it on 5 shards, just going to take a second there. Mokag has wrote a very awesome article that if you're interested in speculating in cards and you know how the mechanics of currencies work in a game, why X should formalize the gold exchange by Mokag here is a very, very good read. I cannot recommend it enough. Very cool read. It opens up a very good discussion, and I do hope, as you suggested, that they implement something like that in the game. As someone who plays a decent amount of PvE, I would love it. It would make my life so much easier. Sets will probably 217 cards, not including PvE. Yeah. Well, PTR 1 week before release could be. And they might go with a PTR next weekend, and from there know if they can release it or not before CCS. Thing is something like that. September 7th was the yeah. For Illinois. But I hope we get exclusive ladder rewards from previous sets when we level up. If X folks read it, I'm pretty sure they read it. I think there's no one that I know of that read it provided negative feedback, and it generated a very healthy discussion on the forums as well. And at the very least, I know that Dinotropia is aware of that one. At the very least, our community managers and our nobles are aware of the discussion, and I'm pretty sure there were a discussion at X headquarters about it. I think that ladder will update the random cards, packs, and chests for 6/6. That is what makes the most sense. I don't think they would change the alternate arts at all from the account leveling, but I sure as hell expect them to change the account leveling rewards for current sets. That's just a given. Time, the charge transaction. Okay, so this moves on to be a discussion about the currency exchange. Okay, that's great. Oh, they are going to fix that, give you the dark hearts. They will. Likely with a patch, likely with set 6. Alright, so we went on a very wild tangent while we were reviewing the where is it? Oh, it's in the top right corner, right? This whole discussion started with Cosmic Calling, and that's an interesting card. I mean, it's very complicated. The high notes are really great, and the low is not that great, but it's still workable, right? And the end of the game, where you have a lot of resources, being able to try to fetch a removal or a piece of action or a troop, like a 2, 3, 4 cost troop with Cosmic Calling is not that bad as well. And it's quick action, so I think this is going to be a very annoying card. If there's one card that I'm not sure about the power level in this set that got spoiled so far, is this one. Because the best case scenario, if it happens too often with this card, it's just insane. It's too much. It's too much. We'll see if it happens too consistently, but if it happens consistently, it's just too much to me. I think this might need a nerf in some form. Call was my spoiler. To get it sort of like once a day, and I'm going to get them to grant me the dark arts when it's fixed. Yeah, that card is something. It's certainly something. I can't wait to play with this one. It's going to have a ton of fun, and just looking at the lines again, right? Sage, Gatherer, Llama Herder is. Let's just pick that one up for the next card that we review here. Not doing these in any specific order, so. And I know I'm not going to be able to put in some data in the review sheet for everything before the set releases, at least not before we get the full spoiler. So I'm going to try and give it a good pull when we get a full set list. But for the most part right now, this is what we get. So let's just try this one out real quick and see the implication that we have. Herder. Llama Herder, so 2 costs, 1 diamond threshold. Ardent Troop. It is a human ranger. It is a rare. It has 2 attack, 2 defense. It reads basic. Exhaust 1 or more other troops you control. This gets +1/+1 for each troop exhausted this way this turn. Okay, this way this turn. Alright. There's another line. Diligence. Summon a llama. This card is great. This is the name of a card, alright. So let's just go with the obvious, like decent stats for cost. That'll work. The rest, what we get? Works great with mobilize. Look for ways to make this survive combat. Tricks, evasion, champion power, extra. Something along these lines. Now, this is one of the worst or best pun in X so far on the card. I'll let you read the the flavor text on this one by yourself, but it's a good one. It's a fun one. Two equipped Zodiac Shamans and Outposts and Llama Herder. Lots of llamas. So, do we like this card? I think we really like this card. I think for limited, I don't think this is a bomb, because it's just creating a bunch of tutus and you only get one a turn if this is exhausted. So there's a lot of ways, but on the other end, this can be quite big when it attacks, but it requires you to be defenseless. That could be a problem. So there's definitely a lot of potential. For limited, I think this is very good balanced card. I mean, it's great, right? It is a B. If you open this, it's a good reason to go to sec. If anything, it slots in okay, I'll write it. That can be played in any diamond deck. That's a given. It's like a 2 for 2 will slot in any limited decks. It's just good value, and there's some amount of additional upside. So you're always playing it. Like, you're not going to have any diamond deck that is not going to play Llama Herder if you have it. That's just a card. So a card like that to me is a B, in the sense that if you this is a good reason to start looking at diamond. If you open this pack one, pick one, this is a good card to build around as well. Good build around card for mobilize. If you have a decent amount of mobilize in your deck, not only is this a good card for mobilize, but it also enables more mobilize with the additional llamas. Good build around card for diligence. Not only does this card enable mobilize, and it's very good at it, it's also very good to enable diligence, because it exhausts troops on demand, other troops on demand. So it's very good card. The fact that it enables both strategies, and that both mobilize and diligence usually want to work together for maximum value, you end up with a very strong card that will likely enable a constructed archetypes on its own. Like, if you're playing against a mobilize diligence deck and your opponent plays this on turn 2, you're going to have to do something about it, because they're going to start to get free blockers and more triggers for mobilize, and he'll be able to, you know, enable diligence as well. Why didn't my donation come back? You did a donation? I'm not sure. In game or out of game? Let's see. Or you can send me a personal message and we'll sort things out. It's not supposed to, but we can definitely sort this out outside after the stream, off air. So this is playable. Enables both mobilize and diligence. Might be the center of a new archetype of deck. That's weird. It shouldn't have been, but we'll see. Send me a personal message on Twitch or an in-game mail, and we'll sort things out. I want to know what's happened as well. Alright, so Llama Herder, it's going to be great. Look at this card. Midnight Gatherer, Cerulean Sage, Llama Herder with some amount of Consult of the Talon, and we've had like we've had Cosmic Calling here that works really great with it. Like there's something going on here. Like this Mobilize Diligence Sapphire Diamond deck is going to do some nice stuff. There's a ton of synergies. The way to counter that is to make sure that they don't have a troop on the board, so heavy removal decks are going to be great against it. But then again, if you're playing a Midnight Gatherer and they have to spend a removal on it, you're pretty happy. You're even on the trade. If they have to spend removal on your Cerulean Sage, you're pretty happy. Like you're up in that exchange. Llama Herder, if they don't spend a removal on it right away, you'll still have llamas on the board to enable Mobilize at the very least. Sure, Midnight is just a cool card that comes from the Gatherer, and Consult of the Talon is going to be constructed playable. Maybe not in that deck, but in some decks for sure. And if you're playing, if you're playing some amount of Mobilize Trigger with the Llama Herder, then Consult of the Talon becomes pretty interesting. Where do you go from there? Like, the Mobilize deck, I guess, will be weak to things like Crocosaurs. Removes 2 of your small troops, and then you have to deal with the big threats. That's not that great. But Sapphire did get a way to deal with Crocosaur and Crusaders. That is very, very efficient at quick action. In the form of Dingle. Also Dreadend, but Dingle it is. So let's just put Dingle up there. Whoa! Why is this bigger than it should be? Huh. Oh, is that the one? Yeah, this one is. Oh, yeah, that works. Okay, so Dingle, let's up on this one next. While we're on it, so Dingle, 2 costs, 1 Sapphire Threshold. It is a quick action. Doesn't have any trait. It is a common, non-unique, and it reads transform target troop on the chain into a Dingler, and that's it. God, this card is great. Sapphire is getting so many cool cards. This is This is first, it is used the same way that we would use interrupt target troop for 2 cost. Now, interrupt target troop has the downside of sending the actual troop in the crypt. And in that sense, if you're speaking about, you know, Kagulichu, Blood Decks in general, we even got a new, you know, uncommon that gets a card from the crypt. There are ways, like, troops in crypts are a resource for many things in X. Hey, Top Ticket Ribbon, thanks for the donation, appreciate it. We'll try to see, make this work. Thank you so much, appreciate it. At some point I may get a partner, but we're a long way off. In the meantime, if you really want to support me, that donations would be one of the best ways to do it, of course. So it really needs to transfer the transform. Needs to be revert and transform. No, I don't think it needs to be revert and transform, since it targets the chain. And you will very what are the scenarios where you have a troop that gets modified in end in a way that transforming it into a dingler on the chain would still result in a good card. There's not a lot of scenarios like that, and certainly we don't have right now. Maybe with aspects of Lanupa that boost things up, but I really read my previous statement. Really needs to be reminisced from, you know, and I used downside versus troops that got prophesied. Yeah, downside with prophecy, depending on the prophecy trigger, but yes. All buffs, all zones. Yeah, I mean it's not interrupt target troop, but it's fairly close. And there's the advantage of transforming the troop. So depending on what you're facing, it might be a bit worse, it might be better. But for the most part, it's a way on turn 2 to deal with Hierophants, to deal with Crusaders, to deal with Krakazors, to deal with Lixil. There's, name it, right? Name it. Guys, I have to take this, so I'll put myself on mute. Yay! Work interrupting the stream. Alright. I will have to have another quick discussion before the end of the stream with someone else from work, but that should be taken care of. Sending just a quick message there. Alright, so sorry for that. Work trumps everything. It's a sad, but it's true. Work trumps stream. Hopefully I won't have to cancel the stream abruptly for work. That would be ideal, but we'll see. I'll just keep back with the chat. So, other dingler effect and favorite function. Print and remove soul and third expansion. Use on something on top. Oh, only eating true, ignores modification. Other cards game, the card dingle is straight up better than one cost card that will only work on action. Yeah, I think dingle for the most part. All right, so yeah, I might. I may have to end the stream right there. Long story short, we're doing. My team is doing an disaster recovery exercise with one of our clients, and these things are really demanding. And right now things are not going great. And I manage a backup administration team, so. If you're doing a disaster recovery exercise, the first thing is to build up servers and then to restore the servers themselves. And if you have problem with the restores, there's nothing else all the other teams involved that just have to wait. And we're not in a good spot. Yeah. Reading the messages that I just received, I will have to abruptly cancel a stream. Sorry guys for that. Work happens, sadly. But we'll continue the discussion on Diggle. I do believe that this is a very, very fine card form constructed. Might not still in limited we play a ton of troop, and being able to transform a good troop into a dingler for the most part will be good enough in limited, I feel. So we'll see for the rest, but yeah, right now work is asking. Actually, I manage multiple teams for different backup environments and technologies, and right now I've got 2 of them are asking my attention. So yeah, we'll have to end the stream there. Very sorry guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, you will be finding these recordings on my YouTube channel. You can also find me on Twitter as well. Always with the same name in-game as well, CoachFliperon. Keep an eye out on Twitter. I'll try to see if I can weave in extra streams this weekend and next week. And as we get approached to the release date, expect more content. And of course, when we get a release, I'm going to do a 12-hour stream on release date. If I can dodge work for a day, and then we're going to do lots of stuff. So, guys, take care, have a great day, and sorry for that. We'll speak again and next stream, hopefully during this weekend, so to compensate for the early end of this one. So take care guys, have a great day, bye.